Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, Oregon. Support our work. Make a donation at strpod.com. Thank you for listening to Spent the Rent podcast. And now, here's your host, Patty Rose.
Hello, I am Patty Rose. You are listening to the Spent the Rent podcast. Today we are back after a bit of a break. I recently moved into a new spot. I'm here now in Eugene, moved over the bridge. I'm really excited for today's guest, Pete Knox. Pete is an LTD board member and someone I have been wanting to have on for quite a while. I'm also friends with your sister, who I don't have it hanging up yet, but she made a really sweet, one-of-a-kind Bernie Sanders painting for me. And so shout out to her. Pete represents Subdistrict 5, which is Central and West Eugene, including the University area and downtown and the Whitaker, Jefferson, and West Side neighborhoods. Today, we're going to get into how LTD, which is the Lane Transit District, is evolving, the big decisions, the big gaps, and the impact on riders and workers alike. As always, head to strpod.com, strpod.com to support the show, stream past episodes, or kick in a few bucks to help us keep this thing going. Pete, thanks for being here. Let's start simple. What brought you to serve on the LTD board, and what's your connection to public service?
Well, thanks for inviting me on, first of all. And it's a real pleasure to be here. And I've been involved with the community for quite a number of years. And I actually didn't start out thinking I was going to be on the LTD board. I've been involved with the city of Eugene. I still am a little bit with a couple of committees, but I ended up getting involved first in 2019 with the LTD when they were doing a pilot program of on-demand project in downtown Eugene that you probably remember called MGO, that kind of only ran right until the big pandemic started, and it folded after that, but. Then I got asked to be on a committee, and then about a year later, in 2021, I got the opportunity to be on the board, and a couple got approached to be a board member, and I went, "Oh yeah, well, why not do that?" And since I'm a lifetime,
it's cool to make it official. I've known you for quite a few years from back in just kind of downtown scene. I think that you were kind of part of the board, just of the people that would hang out at the bar at the Horsehead. So those are the people that make the decisions for downtown. So no, it's really cool to see you get more and more involved. We've known each other for quite a while. You've always been super kind. Now that I'm living in Eugene, I'm going to kind of change my focus a little bit. I've been focused more on Springfield and then just a little bit here in there in Eugene, but Eugene's a much bigger animal. Now let's talk about your daily work on the board. What does that look like? What kind of decisions are you directly involved in?
Right. So, day to day, it depends. My schedule is feast or famine sometimes, and it all depends on what's happening, what kind of meetings and stuff like that. But a best way to describe what I do is I'm basically a legislator, but really focused on just transit, right? And so we do high level decision making, like budgets and high level policy stuff, but we don't get into the day to day aspect of running the show. I make the joke that if I went out there and started barking orders, people would just look at me and go home, Pete, you're drunk. So yeah, that's the short version. I go to a lot of meetings.
Yeah. It's cool that a lot of that stuff is remote now, so that you can kind of it saves you time that way for sure. So now,
no, I don't do as many remote meetings. Some of them, but most are in person.
Yeah. When you talk to people in your sub-district, what are they telling you? The issues that are specific to your kind of zone?
It really depends. I have a really interesting, diverse sub-district. I have the poorest census tract in Eugene, and the most wealthy census tract in Eugene, and the people who are wealthy people, they're like, well, hey, why can we get more service even though we don't ride? And then people who are in the poor areas, there's a lot of or people with disabilities. They go, well, can you fix some of the problems with access and getting on or off the bus and in certain locations and stuff like that. And so, or problems with getting on the MX and it being sometimes too full for disabled people to get their mobility devices on. So
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I rode the bus for many, many years. I didn't get my driver's license until I was in my 30s, actually. But and I, the common age among my friends was probably 21 was to get a license. It wasn't 16. It was a little later, but I kind of really enjoyed riding the bus. I've always been a big fan of community, and I'm a, it's neat to just kind of bump elbows with. You were saying people of different economic situations. There's people on the bus because I work on campus. There's people on the bus that have a lot of money, and there's people on the, you know what I mean. A lot of people use the public transit because the parking on campus is a nightmare, So, and it's going to get worse with new high rises. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Some of it's really tough stuff, but let's talk about some positive things first. What's a recent win that you've been a part of on the board? I guess either specifically to your district or even just the full district wide.
We've been able to complete a bunch of projects lately as far as improving things, and we just had a remodel of the downtown station and expansions of the new bathrooms and stuff like that, and so really bringing it into the modern era. And we're trying to get more. We're able to get more service because we've been able to get more employees on board to be able to provide those services. So we had the money, and not the people.
Well, I'm not sure this is above my pay grade to understand economics completely, but when you get more opportunities, more jobs, that's more tax revenue. So then it goes right back into LTD. And so it's this good cycle, and I like the jobs local. And so that, the next section we're going to talk about is a little bit about the long-term direction and some changes at HR. So let's talk about something that hasn't gotten a lot of public attention yet. LTD recently cut its internal HR department and replaced it with a contract from firm called Zenium based out of Medford for at least the next 3 years. The board was told it would be budget neutral, but I know that a lot of critics are skeptical. What was the reasoning behind this move to a different HR department? And was this about cost, performance, or something else?
Right. So basically, the LTD actually the management talks to the employees. Has the internal forums about twice a year, and for a while they've been hearing about issues of being able to get things done with HR, and so there was a decision made that we need to upgrade and get new policies and stuff, and so this was the best route that was determined by management. That was not a board level decision. So
when I first heard about this, I was kind of under the impression they were like, "Oh, I like to keep things local," but I mean, Medford's still Oregon. I don't know. I'm a statewide person as far as that's still local to me, But I don't know. I mean, these decisions are difficult, I don't know exactly how you come to those.
Yeah, actually, Zenium is I think it's from Tualatin. I don't know. Or at least that's what we were told. But they came recommended by our by Special District Association of Oregon and our contracted legal firm.
Who approaches the board with this kind of stuff? Like, I mean, how is that? When you want to change the HR department, is it one of the board members that kind of creates the initiative and then kind of gets everybody else to sign off, or how does that work?
Okay, so that's I think a really good question because it speaks to the relationship for the board and management. So the CEO makes those decisions that they're going to do that. The CEO has complete authority over personnel. Think of the board as determining the what and the why, and the CEO determines the how and the who. So the CEO said, this needs to happen. We're going to do this. And so the board doesn't get to choose the contractor in any kind of sense because that's the purview of but we get to approve contracts over $250,000. And this one's a $500,000 contract. So yeah, so when we do, the board can have some initiatives, but those are bigger, wider concepts of like, okay, do we want to have more mobility services, or do we want to have more fixed route services, or do we want it more MX lines? Those are the kind of decisions that kind of bubble up to the board level.
So let's see. What kind of impact do you think that these changes could have on employees, the operators, mechanics, frontline folks? I mean, as far as the HR change, what was the selling point that did you support it, first of all? And then if so, what was the selling point on that? What do you think is the benefit from the change?
Well, we want to make sure that the employees have a 21st century HR department and that's responsive and helpful to them. We have 350 employees, including something like 280 operators that they have families, they have health issues, they have all sorts of things, and we need them to be responsive. And this is what I've supported, because I hope that it makes better service for the people who really do the jobs.
For sure. So let's shift to public safety, because there's one thing that's been coming up a lot. And when I talk to people about Eugene in general, but definitely the bus station, there's a lot of issues with public safety. Folks have been keeping a close eye on the local infrastructure and policing. There's been growing concern about how LTD handles safety across the system. Unlike some transit agencies across the country that have their own commissioned police force, like the U of O does, LTD doesn't have sworn officers. Instead, they rely entirely on Eugene and Springfield police. And since there's no direct communication channel or shared database coordination, it can be very slow. That often means repeat offenders are gone before law enforcement arrives. What is the long-term vision for LTD's public safety department?
We do coordinate with Eugene and Springfield's police departments. Yeah, you're right. We don't have sworn officers. We you do have a security department that continues to grow, and they are. We've had to, change as the problems and evolve and deal with them as things change. So I don't think I don't think in the short term we're going to have sworn police. That's a whole another level of cost and whatnot. But we have a lot of data gathering capability that we can hand to the police. We have cameras almost everywhere and stuff like that, and that data can be shared, and it has helped the Eugene police quite a bit. I know I've talked to a couple police officers that are really happy about that.
So you don't think that it would be possible for something like a self-contained internal commissioned force? I mean, that would be a lot of cost, directly to LTD. I don't know how the cost with the police is balanced out if they're the ones doing it. But do you just see that the current situation is working okay? And so you don't see major changes there coming?
Not really. We may need to hire more people or balance it differently. But we, as long as we're having a safe place that people can ride, no matter, as you mentioned before, a whole mix of people, then it is something that I don't feel that we need a sworn force. I think that requires so much more of
infrastructure.
Infrastructure. I'd be hesitant unless somebody can tell me that we're going to have a giant crime wave that requires Batman to be part of our team, and I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future.
It's interesting because as far as crime in Eugene and even Portland at a higher level, people have these illusions in their mind of what it looks like. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of desperation happening in today's world. That's a fact. And there's a lot of stuff that, broken glass and things like that in areas where there's a lot of people, but overall, we live in a really safe area. Oregon is a great state. And I think that overall, we have some really kind people. And I don't know, it's just funny because you'll talk to some people and they're like, Portland is on fire. And I'm like, maybe like a block, or whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's not
Eugene-
evenly distributed.
No, never. And it's always I always say that the issues of Eugene and Portland are over exaggerated and under exaggerated at the same time, which is I don't know how that's possible, but here we are. So
Yeah.
zooming out a little bit, what do you think LTD needs to become over the next decade? What's the long-term vision?
So we're working on becoming to not just be a bus system, to be or we're working on what's called a long range mobility plan, to replacing the long range transit plan, or that acknowledging that we really have a hand in multiple things. Yes, we're not getting rid of buses. That is our core. Yeah, it's our core competency, but we have a hand in the bike share. We have a hand in we are starting a on-demand service in some of the rural areas of Lane County here in the next few months. That will be more of a lifeline kind of service for people who absolutely need it. And then there's another service that there's a grant that's being held up by the Trump administration for that, but we're looking at a on-demand service in West Eugene with partnering with Bethel School District to for kids, basically. And I'm not sure exactly
kind
how
of
this
like
works.
kind of like Ride Source, essentially. I mean, the Ride Source.
Yeah. And
a lot of people don't realize this. If you're on OHP, and don't quote me on this, but like I'm pretty sure that there's Ride Source opportunities for people that if they need shuttled to like a doctor's appointment or something like that, there is opportunity for people, And so the LTD would like to get more involved in that kind of thing.
Right. Well, yeah. It's being involved in moving people. That's what we do, is move people, and getting in. If there's a lot of areas that there's some gaps in what buses can do, and there's the first mile, last mile problem that so we have the same problem that Amazon does in some ways, but the it is we want to be involved with transportation, moving people. I don't care if it's bike share or hoverboard share. Whenever we get hoverboards,
I know that you said that, and I got instantly disappointed in the world because I have dreams still where I wake up and I was in my dream in Back to the Future 2 with a real hoverboard, one that actually is like above the ground, and no, they don't exist.
Wait, I thought that was a documentary.
Well, I mean, maybe it's near in the near future. We got a comment from your sister. She just said, Pete Love, shout out to Sage. So now, is there any talk about free fare transit realistically? Is that on the horizon, or is that just a wish list item?
Okay. I have been approached by a lot of people, especially people who are asking, really looking to help homeless people and people on the lower end of the economic spectrum about that. And it's free fares. We had that free fare for a bit and during the pandemic, and it turned out to be a security nightmare. There is Kansas City is free fare, and they're trying to get out of it. As long as I'm on the board, I will not vote for that. I think people have to have a little bit of skin in the game and it gives generally respect people who have to pay a bit. I don't want it to be an onerous amount of money, but if people pay a little bit, they tend to respect it a little bit more. Also, for those that say, well, what about the homeless people? What about the really poor people? We use some state money to basically provide some bus passes to local charities that can vet people and give them some free bus passes to help them get on their feet, so that we don't do that vetting, they do, and get it to the people who really truly need it.
Another question I have, and I don't know if this is an area that you would know a lot on or whatnot. But I'm an independent contractor and as a barber, and I pay taxes directly to LTD. I have to do it manually to LTD. It's never done through TurboTax or any of that stuff. I guarantee there's a lot of people that don't even know that they're supposed to be paying that, and so then it goes back years that they owe probably, $300, $400, $500 each individual small businesses, sometimes more. How does LTD go about enforcing that tax stuff? I mean, is there any enforcement on that? I mean, I don't want to like give people a get out of jail free card by not paying it. It's very important for people to pay. We need the services, but a lot of people just don't know that they're supposed to be paying the LTD tax.
That's a really interesting question. I don't know the answer to how that enforcement really works.
Unfortunately not your area. That's a hard one. I mean, I support taxation because I support resources, and that's the difficult thing. I mean, it's easy to say I hate taxes, but I want people to have a food bank, and I want people to have the bus, and I want people to have these resources. So it's such a difficult challenge. But I just think about that every year, because every year I'm like, oh yeah, good, I'm done. Oh crap, I got to do LTD, and then I go online, have to do the math myself, and so it's difficult.
But I've heard that you're not the first person who said that to me, by the way.
Yeah, and the website, it's tough because when you have government websites that are outdated, you're like, I want this to be cleaner, but I don't really know if I want to put the money into it. It's a difficult question. You have to make sure that it's effective, the best use of the resources. So their whole section. Let's talk about West Eugene. I know it's not necessarily fully your district, but the big thing is River Road. Actually, that would be more North Eugene, but like that is the area where LTD's had the most contention, where they've had the no MX lines. They have removed a city councilor through recall because of the LTD decision to put a bus line out to River Road, which I've seen some of the data, and it's absolutely necessary to improve the services to that part of town because the traffic will be bottlenecked if we have one person in every car kind of thing. And so what do you tell people that are so irate about advanced services from the bus or from LTD?
Right. So I actually was on the oversight committee on that, and my biggest criticism, and it led me to the thing that I was focused on the most in my first term here is we neither LTD or the city went back out there after the pandemic and had conversations about what the MX line was supposed to be and how it was supposed to work. Those conversations happened in 2019, but when we started making the decisions in 2022 about that, it's 3 years. People forget. People don't know. People in a vacuum, it got filled with information that wasn't necessarily correct. But what we're going to do is we're still going to be some improvements. In fact, under federal definition, we're actually technically still putting a bus rapid transit line, but it's not going to have the big stations where we're going to have some improvements to traffic flow and stuff like that. But it's you kind of still have to call it. It's called an enhanced corridor, and it's a lot less money because you don't have those big stations. You don't have a lot all of the really big infrastructure, but we can do a lot of stuff. One of the big bottlenecks, though, that we can't do much about is that interchange at the River Road and Beltline. And I think ODOT it's in their plan to eventually replace that, but I don't know exactly what that timeline looks like.
ODOT's pretty impressive, the stuff when they get involved. I don't know. I don't know if people give enough credit to the work that they do because I don't know the driving situation, because I'm fairly new to it. It's like it's later in life for me. It was overwhelming when I first started because there's so much signage and so much markings and stuff. But man, they really get it down to a science. It's pretty effective.
Well, the engineering is great, but there's a major transportation package in the legislature right now trying to figure out how to fund the ODOT and some of the services, and I don't know if they're going to get it out of the legislature within the session supposed to end Monday, basically.
Yeah. Who is the new transportation secretary for the Trump administration? Because I mean, I'm sure Buttigieg will still get blamed, like no matter who the person is. But who is the new guy? Is it? Do you know who the transportation secretary is?
Yeah, it's Sean Duffy from Wisconsin. He was a congressman from Wisconsin. I got to hear him speak I just went about a month ago to Washington D.C. for the legislative conference for the American Public Transit Association to really learn what the administration's doing and talk to our congressional leaders that represent us. And it's actually he assuaged some of my fears. I have new ones now, but
Sure.
but he's pretty. My gut from what he said, I think he's there. As he said it about his boss likes a big, beautiful infrastructure. So there will be some emphasis changes, I'm sure, but I'm even with the Republican Congress, the appropriations for transit funding have gone through pretty well.
That's good because that's pretty hard to argue that it's super vital, and so I don't think that people realize how much the benefit to like the River Road area, to West 11th, when they put in the MX, I think it's incredible. I was riding the bus a lot when those were new, and it's so fast and such good service. I mean, we were talking about it yesterday in the shop that this kid was like, the bus comes every 10 minutes, every 15 after 6 or whatever, But he's like, the cool thing is that when you're running to the bus, if you miss it, you know that it's going to be soon enough that you don't have to run. You can just be like, I'll catch the next one. And so it's really, really convenient. College age kids, they love it. The MX,
MX provides about MX serves about 40% of our ridership.
And people complain about it, but I'm like, if you can get those college kids that don't have cars out of that 4-block radius and into West Eugene, North Eugene, it helps our commerce so incredibly much. I think we should have a citywide sales tax. And we should have lower property taxes because then those California kids could be paying for stuff like our roads. Instead, we just have to charge everybody way too much for rent. But that's a different issue. If you had your way, let's see where we at. Oh, okay. So now let's talk about trust and transparency. A lot of people don't know about what the board does at LTD and how to get involved. And this is a really, really important part for people. Unless they're angry about something, that's the only time they seem to reach out. Is that true? You don't get a lot of positive reinforcement when you get feedback. Is that true? Or is it because people seem to reach out to the legislators when they're angry? So what is the best channel first of all, for people to reach out to you? And how can LTD better include the people who ride the bus every day, but might not have the time or energy to go to a meeting?
Right. So there's actually quite a few things. You can email me directly, and or any of your LTD board representatives through the website, or you can email me at pete.knox@ltd.org. If you want to, if you can't make the board meetings, you go to the GovHub channel on YouTube. You can watch them, and and people do occasionally come and do. We have a public comment period, and people do come and say, they're usually grumbling about something, but which is fine.
Which is great.
I don't mind if people grumble about it, because that tells me what's on their mind. I have conversations about LTD like literally daily, and people say all sorts of things, and it helps me learn what's going on. I pass the things on to management that I think are relevant and can be improved and stuff like that. So,
what is the biggest concern that you continuously hear?
People are concerned about their service levels. People are I hear a lot of people concerned about safety. People are concerned about if they have disabilities, they're concerned about having access to the bus. For example, there are places where you notice that we have most bus stops have the basic bus stop pole with the sign. We also have a concrete pad, but sometimes the concrete pad leads to nowhere and there's no sidewalk. And, somebody with some of those like electric wheelchairs are like, some of them are like 500-600 pounds. And, if you get right off that concrete pad, they're in mud and it's like,
You had mentioned, I want to kind of emphasize this a little bit. You had mentioned the last mile, first mile. Can you explain what that meant? That was quite a bit earlier in the podcast, but is it basically when people get on or off the bus? So like before they get to the stop, is that what you mean?
Yeah. The first mile, because if you notice, like, you talk about West Eugene or River Road, there's huge areas of that are residential where it's just not feasible to maybe run a bus around. Either the streets are just windy, they're too narrow, or they're not built to handle a 40,000 pound vehicle going on it, 10 to 20 times a day. So how do you get somebody from their home, which may be a mile away from or more from a bus stop, to and from the bus? It effectively means that they can't use it, right? So that's a question. It's like the how to get people who aren't within like the kind of the standard. I think something like you don't expect somebody to walk more than about an eighth of a mile to a standard bus stop. So anybody beyond that, how do you get them to and from a bus stop?
I lived on Barger off of Terry for a while, and I had to walk. I clocked it. It was 13 minutes if I walked, and it was about 9 if I skated to the bus stop, just to get to the bus stop. And and then that was an hour and 10-minute ride into campus. It was the most miserable I had ever been, because I would spend. You said you spend hours a day talking about LTD. I was spending many hours being stuck, waiting, all that kind of stuff. The bus wasn't the problem. The bus service was good. It was just that I was placed way too far from work. And yeah, that's not a fun situation. So now we're going to get out of here pretty soon. But if you had it your way, what's one change that you pushed to make LTD more transparent so that people could reach out more?
Right. Public engagement has been like my big deal. And something I've been pushing for most of my term here is, and I wish if I had a magic wand, I would have like more things like this where people could engage directly with LTD that aren't one of the usual suspects like myself who are community involved, because a lot of people just don't have the time or the energy to figure that out. And this is a government problem for every government, city of Eugene,
Sure.
Lane County, yada yada. And I could just beam like that information into people's homes so they can interact with it and really understand what it is and what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that's why I'm here with you.
Yeah, I enjoy doing this. I like to learn more. I know that I kind of just touch the surface of these issues because I'm just kind of learning how everything works. I got a question from a listener, Kyle Rainey. He says, what plans, if any, does LTD have regarding further route expansion, Florence or other outlying county boundaries? I mean, Lane County goes all the way to the coast, and so what are some plans to kind of expand service to Florence?
Actually, so that's actually out of our district. There is a service that goes to Florence, and that's operated by LCOG actually, and they just added a second daily run from downtown Eugene to the coast. And then we have the Diamond Express, which goes. So that's the Rhodey Express that goes to the coast. The Diamond Express, of course, goes to Oak Ridge. And that requires more money and so we are expanding I mentioned earlier the on-demand service that really meant to be lifeline type. You need to get to a doctor, you need to get out to a store or something like that. That's for people who live in certain areas of rural Lane County. It's a pilot project. We'll see how it works. They're only going to run maybe 1 or 2 days a week right now. And if it's successful and we're able to get more money for it, I'm sure we'll be able to expand it. And so that's a long short in the short term. Long term, the state has created what's called the State Transportation Improvement Funds, and expanding services in rural areas is one of the big features of that. And so we'll see how that does play out. But the added service to the coast actually is very popular. And the ridership just went way up, right?
College kids have told me that they're doing that they rode the bus to the coast, and I'm like, that's awesome, because as I've worked on campus off and on for over 20 years, cutting hair.
Right.
And the one thing that makes me the most irritated is when people are like, I don't like this state, there's nothing to do. And I'm like, well, have you explored it? Like, you can't just hang out in your living room, I mean, it's such a beautiful state. And so when the kids take advantage of that, I love that. And then you can also go up, you can go east, you can go up all the way up to McKinsey. That's not very many times a day. I think it's only once a day, maybe twice a day. But
rural routes their service levels are pretty low, usually 1 or 2 times a day. Cottage Grove is probably the most frequent. It's a few times a day.
Yeah, it's such a cool service though, and even if it's only once a day, the people that live upriver, because I have my my ex now, but her kids went to school upriver, and so I saw how that works. They all know when the bus is coming. Everybody up there knows that it's like clockwork, and so it's pretty cool. So let's see. We got a few more rapid fire questions, and then we're gonna get out of here. What's your personal go-to way to get around Eugene? Do you ride the bus? Do you drive? What do you like? How do you get around?
I'm a lifetime transit rider. I can't drive.
Yeah.
I got really crappy eyesight. I can barely see. But so I've it does add a little bit to being on the board. And every time I travel, I generally try to ride the system where I'm traveling to.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. This is why I wanted to have you on, is because you are literally a man of the people. You're just, people think that you get in these government positions, first of all, that you make a ton of money, which is false. And then second of all, that you guys are all just like wealthy people that are just like the elite 1%. That's not what it is. It's our community members that are making these decisions. So you being somebody that's been a lifelong bus rider, I think that's awesome. What's the most unexpected thing you've ever heard on a bus?
Not necessarily the thing I've heard, but I was on the MX right before. It was right at the end of the pandemic era, and we were just getting out of. We still had free fares and stuff. Dude walks on with a machete.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah, and he turned out to be a genial guy, but I'm sitting there, and I was like brand new on the board. I'm going, what do I do? Because I don't have any authority on the bus as a board member. The bus operator, they're in charge. And the dude actually walked up to the bus operator and went, "Hey, I got a machete. Is it okay?" Now, it is an Ordinance 36 violation. So basically, it's illegal for him to have it. But the operator kind of let him do it. And turned out he was a homeless guy, but he was fairly genial. But he's standing there with a damn machete in his hand, and I'm just going.
I've seen some funny stuff on the bus many times. Some I probably shouldn't repeat. There was one time I saw a joke that keeps popping up on my Facebook page that I feel is underappreciated. I've shared it. No one ever likes it. I said there was a girl on the bus last night, and she said that her contacts were super messed up the night before. And I was wondering if she was talking about her contact lenses or her Snapchat friends. No, but so what is the worst is now? What is the worst public transit experience that you've ever had?
I think waiting for a bus in 110-degree heat in Phoenix.
Yeah, you shouldn't go to Phoenix. I mean, that's a given. Like that, there's no reason to go to Arizona. But,
Yeah, my mom and stepdad lived there for a number of years. So what are you going to do?
I have family in Arizona too, but it's higher in the mountains, so it's not quite as warm. And I've been flirting with the idea of going, but I kind of have like I don't want to go to Florida. I'm never going to do that. That's not happening. And so there's just places in the
northern Arizona is beautiful. It will remind you if you're going to like Flagstaff in that area. It's a lot like Bend and Central Oregon.
Yeah,
you'll love it.
So now on a fun note, I'm going to be going in July. I'm going to Denver. I'm going to Punk in the Park, a humongous punk rock festival. So I just wanted to end this asking you, what is the coolest or most fun concert you've ever been to?
Ooh. I'm not a big show guy, to be honest. But I remember I got drugged to the string cheese incident once.
Nice.
At the Paramount in Seattle, and that was an experience. And I we ended up walking home from all the way back to Queen Anne, and we were so drunk.
Okay, so well, big thanks to Pete Knox for being here today and digging into the details, from HR changes to public safety to the bigger picture of what LTD is becoming. These aren't just transit issues; they're community issues. If you live in Northwest Eugene, ride the bus, or care about tax dollars are going, these are conversations that matter. Thank you so much, Pete. Do you have anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I really appreciate you giving me the time, and you had some great questions, and thanks a lot, and good luck with your podcast, and welcome to Eugene, by the way.
Thank you so much. What is your email and how people can reach you?
My LTD email is pete.knox, Knox, at ltd.org.
And people listening, make sure to email Pete with positive reinforcement as well as your concerns, because I'm sure that would be appreciated.
I'll take both.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Pete.
Thank you.